Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome today to our talking session on the Mehoo Research Institute. Today we're going to talk about a bit about New France, and I'd just like to first of all say that all the information that we are saying today comes from the R Canada Origins, People, Perspectives, grade 7 textbook here. So it is published by Duval House Publishing, Thomas Nelson, and it was published in, it's copyrighted by Nelson, a division of Thomas Canada, in 2006. So great thank yous to them. This is just a little bit of a credit giving. Alright, so today we're going to talk about some important people in New France. So first we're going to talk about Louis de Bird, or Comte de Frontenac. So Governor Frontenac, he was a governor of New France. He arrived in New France actually in 1672. So he enjoyed life in France as a nobleman. Maybe he overspent, going into so much debt that he ended up borrowing a lot of money, and he was about to lose a lot of his property. And 1672, he was appointed as governor of New France by King Louis, XRV. So he presided over the Sovereign Council in New France. So he did have some strong ideas, but he did get involved in conflict within other people in New France, other officials. So in 1682, the king recalled him. But by 1689, there was a major war because the Haudenosaunee, or the Iroquois Confederacy, was trying to attack New France. So Frontenac was sent as a military commander. He attacked the Haudenosaunee, burning their crops and villages. And as we may all know the Great Peace Law that was signed between France and a bunch of other First Nations. Well, thanks to Frontenac, that was signed. That led to that. So very interesting. Now we're going to talk about Jean Talon. He was a governor. An intendant of New France, and he had a very short term, but he encouraged the crops and farming in that land, and he encouraged settlers to come over. So that really was great. And speaking of encouraging settlers to come over and to encourage a bigger population in New France, we're going to move on to Marie-Claude Chamois. So at 14, she her mother died, unfortunately. So later on, she was sent to France, New France, as a fille du roi, or daughter of the king. So she was sent there as a lady to be married by one of the French men over there, to encourage the French men to go. So she did end up having quite a few children. In fact, I believe, if I am correct, they had many, many children, which is quite interesting, really. So she lived quite a normal life. Her last name was the Friggin by the time she got married to a French person, and they lived a fairly normal life. Let's see here. There was they shared a lot of the traditions with the First Nations. So they had quite a huge farm, really, and really there was the seigneurial system, which she was a hardcore potter. Now we're going to move on to Pierre Esprit Radisson. So he was a coureur de bois, meaning a runner of the woods. So he was an independent trader, the fur trade, really. It was quite interesting, though. He jumped back and forth. He was actually captured by a native tribe as as a member of their tribe. It was quite common for them to do, as their tribe populations were lowering. They would capture people and make them part of the tribe. It's unsure how he left the tribe, but he left and he found a lot of things. He went into a long expedition to the west, really, and returned after years of travels with their canoe with his brother, uh, with his canoe loaded with palm beaver pelts. They expected to be hailed as a hero. Instead, they were arrested for traveling into the west and trading without permission of the governor. So, obviously, Pierre Esprit was quite upset, and he went to the Hudson's Bay Company, and they built forts for them. And the interesting thing about Pierre is that he built the forts for the Hudson's Bay Company, he built the forts for the other company, and then he would go and attack those forts. He would know how to attack them because he was the one who built them. It was really quite interesting how it works. I got the same pair. Was a lady who had always lived in France, really. She married a French officer, and unfortunately, at age 15, her mother had died, so she had to raise her brother and sisters, and they were just barely a month old. And even after she began to raise 8 children of her own, and after she married the French military officer, she continued to raise her children. So she produced cloth and silk, and it was really quite interesting, and she made a lot of money off of that. Now we're going to talk about Jean-Alexis Lemoyne. So he was a voyageur, a fur trader, since a very young age. So he was just going out and looking for fur, and it was quite a dangerous job, but it was quite a rewarding job, really. He did make a little money, and he married. He opened up a small shop in Montreal that sold supplies to voyageurs and local French troops. So it's quite interesting. So he, apart from the shop, he also traded furs. So he got a little money. He got entered into agreements with officers commanding posts in the Anishinaabe territory. It's quite interesting. Now, lastly, we are going to move on to Francois Etienne Cougnet. Well, actually, second lastly. So, Francois was a businessman. He was in exporting tobacco, glue factory, and he also enjoyed ironwork. So he got a loan, he got investors, and he set up ironworks. He made shipyards. He did all of that, but in 1741, unfortunately, he declared bankruptcy. So he retired to his seigneury on the North Shore of the St. Lawrence. Now, the French government took over the ironworks and ran until 1763, when New France became a British colony. The ironworks ended up staying in operation until 1883. That lasted almost 150 years. Now, last but not least, Marguerite Duval. So, she was a member of she was a very religious lady. She had 6 children, and 4 had died in infancy. So after that, she had special dedication to her faith at church. So her husband died, and Marguerite and a group of friends pledged their lives to helping the poor and sick. They actually became quite well known. In 1747, the colonial government of New France asked Marguerite to take over the Hospital General in Montreal, which had fallen into despair and debt. So Marguerite employed the poor and sick at the hospital, those who were strong enough to sew clothing, make sails and tents and candles, cure tobacco, and bake bread. She raised money in other ways too by renting land and marketing produce from farms her group owned. So Marguerite Duval and her fellow workers received official recognition from France and the Church in 1753. They became Sisters of Charity, also known as the Grey Nuns. So they eventually established many hospitals across Canada, including Edmonton, Calgary, St. Paul, and Lethbridge. So this lady was the starting of a great, humongous group called the Grey Nuns. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all for us today. Go to mehoo-research.institute.webnode.com today, or go to our Mehoo Research Institute Google Plus page for homework help from any one of our many experts. We speak your language. That's right. We will speak your language. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all for now from the Mehoo Research Institute.